Presentation of Dialogue on Idaho Public Television is made possible through the generous support of the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore family's legacy of building the great state of Idaho.
Coming up, what makes two journalists leave the world of facts and venture into the realm of fiction? We'll talk about that next with authors Sean Vestal and Judith McConnell Steele, both of whom have new books out. And we'll get their recommendations for good winter reading. That's Dialogue next. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to Dialogue. I'm Marcia Franklin. Burr, it is already really cold out there. Winter is definitely here, and with it, opportunities to sit by the fire with a good book or just get under a comforter and cocoon yourself with some great winter reading. My two guests today, both authors, hope you'll consider their books for your list. Sean Vestal grew up in Gooding, Idaho, and now hails from Spokane. He's the author of God-Forsaken Idaho, a book of short stories. And more on that title in a moment. You can also find Sean's stories in many journals, including Tin House, McSweeney's, and the Southern Review. Now, in his other life, Sean writes a column for the Spokesman Review, where he's worked for the past 14 years in a variety of positions, including reporter, chief of the Idaho Bureau, and political editor. He also teaches in the MFA program at Eastern Washington University. Welcome. Thanks for coming down from the Great White North, although it's equally as cold down here. I think we may even have you beat.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm also pleased to have with me Boise and Judith McConnell Steele. Judith was a reporter for the Idaho Statesman for 15 years, winning many state and regional awards for her work. Two collections of her columns are in print, Stories from Home and More Stories from Home. A founding board member of the Log Cabin Literary Center, for the last 15 years, Judy's been focusing her passion for writing on crafting poetry and a novel. And that novel, set in a fictional village in Brazil, is called The Angel of Esperanza. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Now we'll talk about Sean and Judith's works, and then they've also come up with a great list of books to recommend. So get your pens and pencils ready, and I'll also post their dialogue to the Dialogue site, their list, and I'll also put it on our Facebook page. So right from the top, as I mentioned in the introduction, you're both journalists and work in that profession for a long time. What made you want to write fiction, or maybe you always wanted to write it? I don't know that I could.
Yeah. I always did. I always wanted to write it. It was probably a goal of mine before being a journalist was. And so I've just always tried to do it.
What draws you to it? Because, you know, I always think there's such great stories in real life to cover as a journalist. Why would I make them up?
I think I just love that inventiveness. I love the realm of the imagination, and I love utter freedom within language. So.
What about you, Judith? What draws you to fiction writing?
It was my first love from the time I was little, making up stories, and I value my experience as a journalist very much, but I had some stories to tell that were my own.
And we'll get to that in a moment. I would imagine being journalist also helps you write fiction, because you have to include some facts or it wouldn't be realistic.
Yeah, I think so. I think it helps you assemble the pieces of a realistic, authentic situation, scene, conversation, whatever it might be.
And characters. I mean, being in the world of journalism probably helps you draw characters as well.
Quite a bit. After you've done interviews for 15 years and written a lot of profiles of people, you learn what possibly motivates people, what kind of responses they have to different situations, and feed that into your characters' lives.
Well, let's get right to your books. Sean, interesting title, God-Forsaken Idaho.
Yes.
Explain it.
Well, I always take pains to emphasize that I don't hate or even dislike Idaho. I'm from here. I lived all over this state. And but it describes the sort of otherworldly nature to some of the stories in the book, in which supernatural types of things happen, and the questions of faith that the characters are often wrestling with, and loss of faith.
You were raised in an LDS household.
I was, and I am no longer in that faith, and so to me, that's maybe the area of exploration that's the most interesting is how do you wrestle through those questions of what you do and don't believe, and so.
The title presages this, but it's a bit of a dark book. Would you describe it that way? The short stories in it are darker. Talk about why that mode is important to you. Why you like to employ it.
Well, I would almost say that it's not a choice. That it just is something that is what emerges when I do this kind of work. It's what I like to read. I tend to have a darker aesthetic. But I also think that I don't see things quite as darkly as maybe other people do. So sometimes I think that these are funny. Sometimes I think dark things are amusing.
Your first story is that way. Your first story is about what it might be like to be in heaven.
Yeah.
And it's kind of mundane.
Yes. And so I think it's interesting as a writer and hopefully amusing for readers, although I don't know that it always is, to sort of turn concepts or ideas on their head some way and try to run them out narratively and see where they end up.
So the concept of family, for instance.
Yes. Like we believe, and I'm raised in a tradition in which our family is seen as an unqualified good. And I love my family. I'm not saying that it's not, but I think families are complicated. And so I'm always resistant to the simplest sorts of most positive descriptions of things, and perhaps a little bit looking to challenge them a little bit. So family's a good example. I love my family. My family have been the most important people in the world to me, but some people in my family have also done some of the worst things that anybody has ever done. I think most of us might say something similar. You know, nobody has an unqualified, kind of perfect family, I don't think, anyway.
And you've been very open about the fact that traces of your father are in this book. Your father was in prison for a while.
Yes. Yeah, he committed some crimes when I was young, starting when I was 11, and that emerges in these stories in indirect ways. I haven't written any stories that are about him overtly, but most of the stories, I think, you know, the things that you're deeply personal for you emerge in creative work, and that's what definitely happens here. So there are lots of fathers who are less than perfect in the stories.
And finally, you mentioned you were raised in an LDS family, and several of the stories touch on themes that are within the church. That the cover of the book has a very famous person from the church on there. And so if one is Mormon, do you think that a Mormon person would like the book or enjoy the book?
Well, I would hope so, but I don't treat Mormonism with reverence. I don't mean to attack it or undercut it, but I write about it as the lens through which questions about faith and belief and doubt are raised. And so many of the characters in the book are consumed with opposition to or hatred for the church. It's not my ultimate bottom line mission.
So to speak.
Yeah, so to speak. And so I know some LDS folks I know just don't want to go there in terms of rethinking, reimagining in a fictional world. And some do. Some appreciate what I'm up to and understand it. And so it's a mix.
I'll have you read the first paragraph from the title story, God-Forsaken Idaho, so people can get a sense of this mixture of both darkness and humor.
For most of my life, I couldn't have found Idaho on a map. I had no picture of the place in my mind, nothing like a California beach or a Texas oil field. Potato trees is what I thought on the drive out. Rows and rows of potato trees. I was a stupid child, well into adulthood. And so I find myself in Idaho, and it turns out that potatoes grow underground, and there aren't any up here in the northern part of the state anyway. People here hate it if you even mention potatoes. I feel that way now, too.
Right, potatoes and Nazis sometimes are the only things that got mentioned about Idaho when I was growing up. Thank you. And Judith, I want to talk about your book, Angel of Esperanza. This is an idea that, as you alluded to in the introduction, was percolating in your brain for a long time. You were a Peace Corps volunteer in Brazil. Something happened down there that was the seed of this story.
Yes, I was living in a small village and went to another small village and spent an afternoon with a very wealthy man in this poverty-stricken area. And he invited me for lunch. We had a wonderful lunch and had a wonderful conversation. And the whole time I was there was a woman somewhere overhead crying, screaming, moaning, and no mention at all made of this. And I came away from that afternoon very shaken about this and really starting to think about what would happen to a woman to put her into that situation.
The story behind the story.
Yes.
Once you read the first couple of paragraphs of your book, and people can see how you turned that into the start of the book.
Late at night, in the faraway town of Esperanza, a light burns in a lonely tower. A warm wind drifting through the town carries the mournful notes of the woman in the tower. Her voice rises into the wind, rippling the fronds of the coconut trees lining the town square, then drops low, insistent. The people in the town know who is shut in the tower.
And like Sean, or as with Sean, your book contains elements of the magical, of the mysterious, of another world beyond this one.
And that the setting and the tone are very much true to the area where I was where I worked in Peace Corps.
Now, as I recall, this started as a short story, or it started smaller.
Yes.
And characters kept insisting that they be let in,
Yes.
for want of a better phrase. Is that right?
That's correct. I took a break from what I thought was my real novel, the one I was writing then, and because I had hit a wall with that novel and run up against it a couple of times and didn't do anything but damage to myself. So I thought, okay, I'll take a break. I'll write this story that I've been carrying around for a long time. And started writing, and after about 10 pages, I realized I'm not anywhere near the beginning of this. And after 20 pages, I still was not anywhere near the beginning of it. So I realized I've got something else and I don't know what it is.
And as I mentioned, you were hearing characters coming to you, right?
Yes, people started, I thought it was going to be just the woman, and people started coming in, a tutor, a companion to this woman's son, and then it just went on, and these people started taking over the story, and I had no control over them. And it sounds crazy for people who don't write fiction, but it's all of us that I've talked to.
I've talked to many authors who say that as well.
Absolutely.
Colin McCann, that
Yeah.
all of a sudden the character would disappear, which was the most frightening thing. Like she was
yes.
gone, and she decided to take a little hiatus, and so he couldn't write.
Yes.
What was it like to write about another culture, to essentially, as a narrator, be a woman in another culture other than your own?
I had started with this character, and at first I wasn't thinking about the fact that I wasn't going to be showing things from the American viewpoint, which a lot of literature does when you walk in and give your take on it. And as I went further along and realized I was writing a novel, I did start questioning whether anyone would accept this, that I, as an American, as a foreigner in this place, could have some authority to write it. And that was a difficult question for me all the way through. And as a matter of fact, when I sent out the first version of it, there were a couple of people in the publishing business that told me if I had a foreign-sounding name, it would be better. So I considered that. Didn't work. I couldn't do it. But
you came to terms with that.
I did, and I ended up being at a conference where someone who was from Latin America answered that very question that came up. And what she said was, if this story is in your heart, you have to write it. And that gave me the permission.
Well, I don't want to spoil anything for people, but basically it's a story behind why a woman would be in such deep grief, and involves her children in a way, but mysteries of life here and mysteries of life beyond, if that's fair enough to say.
Yes.
Both of you have kind of celestial themes tied into your books, which I find interesting. I want to take a moment and go through some of your recommendations for good winter reading for our viewers. Sean, first you're going to recommend a book, Runaway, by Alice Munro, who just won the Nobel Prize for Literature.
Yes, and she's gotten a lot of attention. It's well-deserved, but she's a favorite of mine. I think she's just an absolute genius of the form and expands the range of possibility for the short story, which is easy to see as somewhat limited and smaller in scope. And when you read a Munro story, as is often said, they often have the scope of a novel. They'll cover a lot of time. And for me, I love her narrative inventiveness. She will do anything with time. She'll move around in time and fracture time in a way that, to me, is a model, something I think about and would love to emulate.
And Canadian writes about small town life,
Yes.
as you do in your book, as you did.
She has a great way with the rural, with the conflict of the rural and the urban, that feels.
And I note that when she won the Nobel, she said, I would really hope that this would make people see the short story as an important art, not just something you played around with until you got a novel. So I'm sure you can identify with that. Judith, you're going to recommend another Canadian writer, Michael Ondaatje, and The English Patient, which many people may be familiar with from the movie.
From the movie, yes.
Why are you recommending this book?
The book came at a point where I was really going into a new setting, and setting is so important.
In your novel?
In
going
the
to a new
novel, yes,
setting.
yes. And I knew that I was going into a place that I didn't know as well. And I found in The English Patient his description of the villa and that mysterious ruined place, and just realized this is my way into this section of the book.
Nice. Yeah, it's a beautiful book. Sean, moving on, a Montana writer, one who I really respect as well and like, James Welch, and his book Winter in the Blood.
Yes. And that is it's a heartbreaking book. It's a dark book, but for me, early on, it was an important model in terms of trying to deal with difficult things in a way that still allows for the prospect of beauty and even hope in the execution of the work, in the language, in the writing itself being a kind of affirmation against the darkness. So, anyhow.
And Judy, another Montana writer, you're recommending, or it's a story set in Montana, The Falling Boy by David Long.
Yes, and he was a Montana writer and has a number of books set there. And I knew his short stories, and I was at a point with my own continuing journey on this book, and really felt like I wasn't doing it right, that I knew how real writers did books, and they had outlines and they knew where it was going. And then I read an interview with David Long, and he described what it was like to write Falling Boy, which was his first novel after many years of short stories. And he said, it's like going through the woods at night with a flashlight. You can only see out to the edge of the light. And I just felt like I had been given permission. There was one real writer that was doing what I was doing.
Yes, I'm sure many writers do that.
Yes.
So, and the book is beautiful.
The book is, there is no way you would know that that's what he had done. His characters and his setting, the small town of Sperry, is so right, and you can't imagine these characters ever stumbling around. They do stumble, but they have a life that's very real.
And Sean, moving on, a fabulous Idaho writer, you're recommending Dennis Johnson's Train Dreams.
And that's just wonderful. It's almost a long short story. It's a very short novel, but it covers the life of a man named Robert Grenier, who is a laborer and has this long, kind of lonely life where he feels somewhat apart from people and heartbroken by a loss. And it's
working on the Spokane Railway.
Works on the Spokane Railway. He works in the woods, northern Idaho. He lives in a cabin near Bonners Ferry, and starting in about 1917 till the 60s, it covers the span of his life in a really beautiful and authentic feeling way.
I'd love to meet Dennis Johnson someday and talk with him.
I would too. Yeah.
And Judy, you're recommending another Idaho writer, one who I'd also like to have on the show, John Rember, Trap Lines, about his childhood in the Sawtooth Valley.
Yes, and
Great book.
these are essays. He also writes short stories, but these essays are so beautiful because he goes back to the valley where he grew up and finds that home is not home anymore, and he's actually living in a museum.
He's living in a museum,
Yes,
a tourist town.
yes, and very evocative of what's happened to so many people trying to go home.
Especially where towns have changed.
Yes.
Sean, you're recommending a book by Nance Van Winkle. These are linked short stories set in Montana called Boneland.
Yes, and Spokane in Montana is where they're set, and it is almost novelistic in its scope.
And she's a Spokane writer?
She's a Spokane writer and poet and artist. Nance is an amazing creative force. This book is really wonderful. It's short stories, and they can stand on their own, but added together they have the feel in sort of in the way that I talked about with Monroe of a novel. I mean, these are a series of stories with the same characters, and they move around in time, but at the end you have this feeling of a large story that has occurred in a somewhat unexpected way, maybe.
Neat. So. And while I still have you, Spokane, what's going on up there? You guys are hot. You have a lot of writers.
I feel like it's a good time for writing and writers in Spokane.
What do you think's causing that? Boise too, by the way. But
I don't know. I mean, I think it has something to do with some of the individual writers who are in town and who have had some success. People like Jess Walter, who stayed in Spokane, and for a long time, Spokane was a place that people kind of passed through, you know, and went and came and worked, and then went to Seattle or went to Portland. But there's just, I think writers who are emerging now feel like you don't have to leave to live an artistic life.
Yeah.
So.
Great writers up there. Judy, we're rapidly running out of time, but give us an overview of your next book, Marianne Wiggins, Evidence of Things Unseen.
Yes, I could have recommended any of her books. She's an amazing writer, and she takes big subjects. This one is on the dawn of the atomic age, and puts it in two characters that you care about very much into that setting, and you see what happens to these
including
people.
Radiation poisoning.
Yes, they start off very idealistic and end up paying for it.
Interesting. Sean, there's no good segue to this next title, but it's fascinating. 3 Scenarios in Which Hana Sasaki Grows a Tail by Kelly Luce, who spent time in Japan, and 3, I think, of the 4 stories are set in Japan, but she's actually from Illinois. This book published by an upstart young publishing house out of Austin.
Yeah, A Strange Object, it's called. And the stories are wonderful. They really, one of the things that I look for in fiction is a way to address mystery in a way that is not either dogmatically religious or dogmatically anti-religious. like the world needs to be able to express its
questions.
It's unforeseeable. Yeah, it's questions. Yeah. It's unforeseeable. It's ununderstandable parts, and her stories do that wonderfully through the experience of mostly an expatriate American living in Japan.
I look forward to reading that. And Judy, we're going to finish up with A Field Guide to Getting Lost by Rebecca Solnit.
Yes.
We all need to get lost more.
Yes, and that's what she's saying, that it's easier for modern day man to get lost going out anywhere beyond his own house, her own house, but that there's an art to getting lost.
Well, and people don't want to get lost anymore. They want to know exactly where they're going on their GPS, and you miss so much when you don't get lost.
Yes.
I mean, even talking about your own writing processes, you have to get lost
To
be found
to
eventually.
be found,
I mean, that's
to
part
find
of the,
yourself.
part of the process.
Yeah.
And so these are different essays about the importance of getting lost.
And that's what she's talking about is this is the way you find your soul.
Yeah, I've certainly had my most interesting adventures while I've been lost. What's next for both of you, Sean?
I'm working on a novel set somewhat around the Evel Knievel Snake River Canyon jump. That's a minor part of it.
Yeah. Wait, so you're going from short stories to novel?
Well, I'm trying. I also have short stories that I'm working on. So. The novel is very much like being lost in a forest with a dim flashlight.
Hey, I've heard that somewhere before.
Yeah, me too.
And Judith, you're going to plunge maybe into another novel?
I have a start for something, and after writing this novel that I thought was going to be a short story, I have no idea what the next one's going to be. I'm hoping it'll be a novel, but we'll just have to see. It may be a poem or a song or a short story, but I'm planning it to be a novel.
And after what you've both been through producing these books, which we'll talk about a little bit more in the web extra that will be online, has it been worth it? What's it been like, the journey for you?
Well, it's been wonderful. I mean, I tried to write fiction for my whole life and never got anything published until a few years ago, and so it's just been a thrill.
And I want to mention as well that Sean has a Kindle single online about his father, and it's quite beautiful. I recommend people go online and read that essay, and that's a new form of publishing, if you will. We'll talk about that. And Judith, what about you? I know it was a long process for you to write this book, and
yes,
somewhat
it was
torturous at times. And
yes,
there
were times when I put it away, thinking this isn't going to happen, and I need to get on with my life. And I do have other things that I care about as far as writing, but I kept coming back to it and finally found a wonderful publisher who said, I want this. So my message is don't give up. It can happen.
And you teach as well in the MFA program, so I assume that's your message as well. Don't
Well,
give
you
up.
have to.
Put your bottom in the seat and keep writing.
That's it.
You have to fail a lot.
You do. You do. Well, thank you so much. You've been listening to authors Sean Vestal and Judith McConnell Steele talk about their works and recommend good winter reading. We'll have their list online at the Dialogue website and on our Facebook page. Be sure to check those places. And for Dialogue, I'm Marcia Franklin. Thanks for tuning in.
Presentation of Dialogue on Idaho Public Television is made possible through the generous support of the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore family's legacy of building the great state of Idaho. Check out our website, become a friend on Facebook, or follow us on Twitter.